Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. Super thrilled to have you on board wherever you're listening. If it's here in New York, anywhere else in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Asia, Mars, wherever you're listening to this, thanks for being here. And super excited to have you on board simply because I just finished a great episode with TJ Galiardi. And TJ, he played in the NHL for several seasons. He played overseas in Europe and in Russia. Really some great stories. You're going to love hearing those. But more importantly, he's really pivoted from being a professional hockey player to being the co-founder of a company that's doing some, really created a great product that you're going to need to hear about. But before we jump into that, make sure you go to my website anytime, markmoyer.com, for access to all the previous episodes of the Make Your Mark podcast. You can also find links to buying my book, Win Again, really the job search playbook for helping athletes transition to what's next in their life. But also great advice on how to transition your career, lots of business advice. It's a great place to be. Check it out anytime. Also reach out to me anytime at mark@markmoyer.com. Happy to hear from you. If you've got a guest you'd like to recommend or just want to connect, great to hear from you. But without further delay, here's TJ Galiardi. You're going to love this episode. Happy listening. Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. My name is Mark Moyer, and I'm broadcasting to you live from New York City. Super thrilled to have you on board, and I'm excited to bring in TJ Galiardi, who is a former National League hockey player and has his own business now, and we got all kinds of stuff to talk about regarding that. But TJ, thanks for being on board today.
Mark, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And where are you located right this minute?
I am in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Now, where's Sid from? Is he from somewhere around there?
Yeah, Cole Harbour. I think it's about half an hour away.
Yeah. Now, are you? Well, actually, I don't know if you want to say it already in the podcast, but are you a Sid fan or eh?
Yeah, sure. I think he's a great player, and actually met him for the first time this summer. So it's surprising that 10 years playing against each other, we had never met. But I guess that's what happens. I spent my entire career on the West, and he was in the East.
Right, and what's interesting is I think that hockey is one of those games where it's, you stick with your guys in your locker room. You don't necessarily pal around with guys that are outside of it, especially when you're in different conferences, unless you're from the same hometown or similar area. But before we jump into the hockey stuff specifically, just give me a quick little background on yourself, TJ. And, I know that you were born out in Calgary, probably one of them. I mean, you don't control where you're born, but that's a magnificent part of the planet. I mean, it is gorgeous out there. The city is beautiful, and the mountains are great. But tell me a little bit about sort of growing up there and what got you started in hockey in the first place.
Yeah, so grew up in Calgary, great place. My mom's actually from Arizona, and it was too hot there for my dad, so they moved back to Calgary. Two brothers. My older brother played hockey, so of course I did as well. Being from Canada, every single person wants to play hockey, so it was an easy journey to get into that. Played my entire life in Calgary. Played peewee, bantam, midget. Played junior A in Calgary. Finally left to go play college. Went to Dartmouth for 1 year. Left, came back to Calgary to play in the Western League. I just needed to be close to the family, I guess. Again, had to get back there, and then started my pro career after that.
You know what? I've done now, I think this is episode 56, TJ. That is the world record for fastest encapsulation of your like that was amazing. That was, I don't know, like 28 seconds of my whole life up until like my pro career.
Yeah.
Most people are like, when I was 4 years old, and then they go into that from 4 to 5. Wow, that was impressive. So, I get it that your dad would say Arizona's too hot, but I also have to think Calgary may not be exactly the warmest place on the planet. So I figured
Mhm.
maybe there'd be some place in between, like, I don't know, Idaho or something, but I guess not.
Would
But
have been
look,
nice.
now, so when you were growing up, were you, I mean, should I assume that you were mostly a Flames fan then throughout, or?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love the Flames. When I was young, my dad was a huge Flames fan, so that was always in my blood to want to be a Flames player eventually, and it did come to fruition many years later. But I guess we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah. Did you have the opportunity to go to a fair amount of games when you were younger?
Went to a bit. I mean, I think our schedules were also busy. Having two brothers that also played hockey and were different ages, so we always were at an arena. But I think it was hard to actually find time to even sit down at the dinner table, let alone go to a hockey game.
I got it. Now, whenever I watch a game, and if for, I'm a big Rangers fan, and I have season tickets, blah blah blah. But whenever I watch a game, let's say when they're playing out west, and the Flames or the Oilers, etc., it's always I'm always fired up because I love seeing a whole arena that's dressed in red, for example. Whereas in New York, you've got people in suits, you got people in, random types of jerseys, home and away and everything else, or even the Capitals. Um, I'm always impressed that they're always like they're all in the jerseys. It's cool. So I mean, I always thought that was an impressive thing about Calgary.
The
Really
city
everyone's, yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. So you went to Dartmouth for a year, and then you decided, you know what? I'm way too smart for this place. Way too smart. Everyone's stupid here. I'm out of here. But was there any thought to sticking it out at all, or was it a no-brainer to go, chase the contract and move from there?
Yeah, for me, I think at that point in my life, school wasn't a priority. I thought it was going to be when I left to go there. I mean, that was the main reason I went to Dartmouth, the Ivy League school, and I figured it'd be a great thing to fall back on if hockey didn't work out. But I found out pretty quickly that I wouldn't be staying there a full 4 years, and then it became, what's the best way to become a pro as fast as I can, and that was eventually leaving, playing in the Western League for a year, and then becoming pro.
And so when you got that first call to play, and in the pros, I mean, you'd gone through the minors for a bit, and then you got the phone call. I mean, was it a phone call? Was it the coach coming over? I mean, when you had your first game, you're going to the NHL.
It's funny, I don't really remember the process, if it was a phone call or if it was our coach calling me in, but I know that I got there in the morning. I think I got there the morning of the game. Brought my gear to the rink. It was a whirlwind. Talked to a few of the guys because I didn't really know any of them that well, and then got into the game that night. We lost 8-1. I was -3, so it wasn't it wasn't the storybook first game, but it ended up working out well. We, what, for being -3, I think I had a pretty good game. And then eventually I played the rest of the season there and scored a few goals, so it worked out.
Well, it's funny when you say you're -3. I play a little bit now, and I always like to tell people that at least I wasn't -8. Something to that effect. But that's you must have been like, skating around going, oh man, these guys are not that good. What the hell? What did I come into?
Yeah,
But
I just thought if I get sent down after this, it'd be the worst stat line in the history of the NHL. One game -3, 0 points.
I suppose you could have thrown in like a game misconduct or something in there too while you're at it. But
Yeah,
anyway, but you did score your first goal a little while after that, and I know the answer, but tell me who you scored against.
it was Jason LaBarbera. So journeyman goalie in the NHL, great guy. He actually trained at the same gym as me in Calgary, so I had bragging rights on him for pretty much for the rest of our lives.
Now that's for the rest of our lives. Did he? I'm assuming he stopped a shot or two. Maybe he stopped 9 or 10 of them on you or something. So his save percentage was okay or not, or did he just
I
bury
don't
it past
know.
him?
It might have been my first shot of the game on him, but we'll see. I know I ended up playing him several times again, and I
Yeah.
don't know if I ever scored on him again. So his save percentage was probably all right.
That's great. Now, so you played for a while, obviously, sort of several seasons, and you mixed in. We'll talk about going to Europe and the lockout and that sort of thing. But I know that you had one night, a couple of years after you started playing, that you had 4 assists. So that was like your big point night. What was? Tell me a little bit about that experience when you sort of got off the ice. Were like, wow, what just happened? Did you even know you had 4? What was that like that day? You remember?
I do remember. I remember before the game, Paul Stastny, who still plays, he's had a great career. He jokingly said to me, "You're going to have 4 assists tonight."
No
Just
way.
And that game, I ended up, it was sometime in the third period, I got my 4th assist, and there was still probably 10 minutes left. And I remember there were probably 3 more chances that I had to get a 5th assist. Ones that normally, a guy would have scored, but I know it was a crazy feeling, and it definitely was a good night for the stats.
Yeah, no, I wonder if there was some sort of force at play that didn't allow you to get that 5th assist because, maybe stats knew somehow preventing that 5th one from happening.
Yeah, it's his fault. He should have told me I was going to have 5.
That's a good point. So anyway, there's an NHL lockout in 2012, and you decide to head really east to Europe. But tell me a little bit about what it was like to go from, the NHL to, Europe.
Yeah, so my agent called me and said, "Hey, you getting bored of skating in Calgary or Toronto or wherever I was?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm definitely bored." And he said, "Well, it doesn't look like the lockout's going to end anytime soon. Do you want to go play to stay fresh for when it does end?" So I said, "All right, let's do it. Why not?" I was young. I think I was single at the time. So packed my bags, went to Germany. I was there for, I think, a little over a month. It was cool experience. It was a lot of downtime. That's when I started to realize that, what, I'm in a foreign country. You can only travel and discover so many places within your region. So let's start to use my brain a bit and try to learn. And I actually really got into real estate investment when I was out there, learning about it, trying to really consume as much information about it as I could. So when I eventually was ready to make a real life investment, that I would kind of be comfortable with it.
That's interesting. Did you have any American team, or not American, but English teammates, or were you the only one?
No, there were guys that had played there for several years in the German league that kind of had like German passes. So I think I was like the only pure Canadian guy on the team.
And did you end up learning the language or
No, I didn't learn it. Nothing. It's a pretty hard language to learn. I probably knew a few basic words, but I wouldn't remember any of them now.
That's funny because, I always wonder, for example, I've always been impressed with some of the athletes that come from, let's say, the Russian guys or even, in baseball, a lot of Hispanic speaking athletes that come here. And, some of them take to the language pretty quickly and others kind of don't bother. And I agree. I think German would be a pretty tough one to pick up, other than the sort of, let me grab a beer and a few other important words like that.
Yeah.
So you said you only played there a month. What happened? What ended that? What was that so quick?
I actually tore my MCL. So I just started rehabbing, and then I think it was maybe 3 weeks after that, the lockout ended. And luckily my knee was good enough that I was able to go to camp, and team never found out, which I don't think they really would have cared. But it was never missed any games in the lockout.
We didn't really. So no one here in the States got that lower body injury report.
No. I think it was kept pretty quiet. No one was really paying attention to what was going on in Germany anyway.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So you come back and you have a chance finally to play for the Flames. I mean, this is your childhood dream. Tell me a little bit about that experience and maybe what it was like to skate out on the ice that first time.
Yeah, so I played every single level of hockey that you could play in Calgary, WHL, junior, everything. So when I finally culminated that with playing for the Flames, it was really cool. And you know what, the season started out well. We had one of those teams that was pretty young, kind of going through a rebuild. So we didn't win a lot of games, but it was fun for me to just finally be able to put on that jersey and play in front of my friends and family. My parents went to every game. I had extra season tickets for friends and for my younger brother as well. So it was a cool experience. Didn't go perfectly. Our team wasn't good, but still something I'll always be able to look back on and be proud of.
Oh, absolutely. So you go back to Europe, and then I'm more interested in I'm intrigued by your experience in the KHL. Tell
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit about the quality of the hockey there and what your experience was like there. I mean, I know it wasn't too long, but tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the hockey's fairly comparable. I mean, it's not like the NHL. It's not, the high end talent isn't quite as high over there, but there's some players that you've never heard of that are incredible hockey players, and they just are very comfortable there. They make a lot of money. There's no sense in them leaving and packing up and coming to North America. But it was one of those places where the contrast between high quality and low quality is very, very big. So, you'd be in Moscow, which is a beautiful city. It's like New York. There's a Four Seasons there. There's a Ritz-Carlton. There's, top end restaurants. But then you go to a town like Nizhnekamsk where I lived, and it was, I don't know the language on here, but it was a shithole. So it wasn't very nice. And, so I tried to spend as much time as I could in Moscow. It was luckily only a 45-minute flight away, but the people there are great. I never had a bad experience with anyone over there, and very respectful, and they love hockey.
Now, when you say that a lot of the the Russian players that were there, they made a lot of money. They didn't have any reason to come. I mean, are the salaries somewhat comparable, or what's that like?
Yeah, it'd be quite comparable to the NHL. The big difference there is taxes are only 13%, so
Wow.
you're giving half of it away to the government.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That must suck to pay low taxes. God.
Yeah.
I, I'd hate to have that situation. But now, do they? But are sort of ticket prices the same? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what the experience is like to go to a Russian game. I mean, I know it's not cheap to go to an NHL game. I mean, it isn't
No,
some.
they'd be way lower over there. There's no way people are paying,
Right.
$1,000. I know. I looked at a game the other day, just randomly curious what the prices were, and I think I saw tickets for $1,000. So it's.
For what?
I think it was a Leafs game. I was just checking.
Well, it's you can't use that as a barometer. Come on, it's not. Where you? All right, never mind. TJ has to sit in the best seat in the house. All right, I get it.
I actually don't ever go to any hockey games. I've been to maybe two since I retired, 2 or 3 games. So I prefer to
Yeah,
watch on my couch.
yeah, I know, I get it. Well, I'm assuming it's got to be a little bit. I don't know what the word is, but I used to be in a rock band a long, long time ago, and it's funny because now whenever I go to live shows, part of me loves it, and I know the music and I know every note and this and that, but the other part of me wants to be up on the stage playing, and it there's that, and I sort of I'm assuming it might be similar for you. I mean, it's not like you're 57 years old and you've been out long enough and so on. You can probably still skate and so on. So, what is that feeling, that whole like, gee, I wish I was back down there, or not really?
No, not really. Actually, it's kind of the opposite. I saw a few videos this summer of guys training, and it kind of made me realize how happy I am to be done with it. I have nothing but great things to say about hockey, but I think when you get to the point when you're ready to move on, you're definitely ready. And I've put on my skates once since I retired, and it was for a charity event. And now I'm turning down any charity event that requires me to go on the ice. I think I'm at that point where I just definitely do not want to lace them up anymore.
Wow. All right. So I got to figure out, I'm going to do it not for charity. I'm going to get you on the ice somehow. Not for charity. It's going to be purely for profit only. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's going to be the first Beyond Food alumni game versus.
Well, I think the talent wouldn't be very good out there.
We'll work on that. All right. Anyway, so speaking of Beyond Food, that is obviously the company that you're directly involved with now and that you've co-founded. But before I talk about that, I guess what I want to hear a little bit about is, you started talking about how back when you were in Europe during the lockout, in Germany, you started doing some sort of really, as you said, getting the brain going and learning a little bit about real estate and real estate investment. But, at what point did you start thinking, I really need to prepare for life after hockey? I mean, do you kind of remember-ish when that was happening?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably around that lockout year. I just started to learn more about other things other than hockey. And I think I always knew that your career is going to end at some point. So I was just trying to figure out, dip my toe in everything to see what I actually really enjoyed. And at the time it was real estate, and I still love real estate development and investment. So I really thought about, okay, every person that I know and I grew up with, the people that have a lot of money, what is their background? And being from Calgary, it was either oil and gas, which I had zero interest in, or real estate. So I stepped into that real estate space, and it's a unique space, but I had a great mentor who actually is my co-founder now, Dr. Darren Burke, who he's done a lot of real estate as well over the years. So he taught me a lot, and I kind of got into it with both feet.
That's without the skates on. So when you talk about real estate investment from your perspective, what is it that you like to focus on?
It was basically finding undervalued properties, sprucing them up, and then renting them out.
Got it. I mean, was it locally? I mean, was it in Calgary or where you are now, or?
Yeah, everything in Calgary. Yeah.
Got it. So have you considered, I mean, is that something you would ever want to grow, or is it something where it's taking care of itself because your focus is completely on Beyond Food right now?
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I learned a lot as well from my uncle. He was a big real estate guy in Calgary, and he started at the bottom with, small single family houses and worked it all the way up. Where at the peak, I think he had 7 apartment buildings with over 100 units in each of them. So wow. He learned a lot over his time and taught me a lot as well. But now, once my career ended and Darren and I kind of kept in touch, we knew we wanted to start something else. I know I'm fast forwarding a bit here, but
that's okay.
It wasn't in the space of real estate. It was something new.
So speaking of something new, when did you first hear about or get the idea of, wait a minute, time out. I need to take a step back. You are vegan, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. When did that happen?
I think it was a little over 5 years ago now. My wife was vegan for, I think at the time, for probably 3 years. And I always just kind of thought it was an annoying habit that when we'd go to restaurants, she'd have to find something random on the menu that she could eat, and it always took longer than it should have. But my stubborn ways started to kind of unfold, and I started to try some stuff. And the more animal products I took out of my diet, the better I felt. And I always did things based around performance. So if I felt like I was recovering faster, then I just kept doing it. Eventually got to the point where I went cold turkey and I took all animal products out of my diet and haven't looked back since.
Now that includes dairy, right?
Yes.
Got it. So when you do go out, and I mean, I'm assuming you now know where is very vegan friendly and where isn't. I'm assuming you've got a pretty good idea of that. But is it something where you can easily figure that out just by looking at a menu at a restaurant, or is it? How do you choose where you go out if you go out?
Yeah. I mean, it's 2019 now. The amount of vegan options there are, and specifically vegan restaurants, is insane. I can imagine in New York there's probably over 100. So it's the options are there. We cook a lot at home, but there's some staples. We love Indian food, and you can always find vegan options at Indian restaurants. And then in Halifax, I think there's 4 vegan restaurants here. So there's always options. I was vegan in Russia, so if I can do it there, I can do it.
That's right. You have potatoes and potatoes. But that's great. Now, have you, when it was time to start this company, did Darren approach you with the idea? Or was it the other way around? Did you both sort of sit around one day and say, hey, we should do this? How'd that start? Tell me.
So I'll give you a quick background. So Darren started a supplement company 10 years ago called Rivalus. I was an athlete at the time. I used the products. That's how we got to know each other. And then we did a few business deals together outside of that realm during my playing career. And during that time, it was, I guess, 6 years ago now, he sold Rivalus, signed a 5-year non-compete. When that non-compete was kind of running down, my career was kind of running down. I was kind of looking to see what I was going to do next. And him and I, we got along so well. We said we should really get into this together, start a new venture. We knew we wanted to do it in the supplement space because he had already been through it, had a very successful exit. So we thought, okay, we need to really differentiate. There's probably 1,000 supplement brands out there or more. So we figured, first of all, we'd be plant-based because Darren's also vegan. So plant-based was number one. All of our products would all be vegan, cruelty-free, so on and so forth. Number two, we wanted to stick to that athlete niche just because of my background, and his previous brand was very athlete niche.
Okay.
Number three was top certification. So NSF certified for sport is the highest level of third-party certification you can receive for supplements. And then number four, we thought, how do we bring a sustainable piece to this? And we were sitting on a flight and saying, okay, at the moment, we have to procure raw materials that are a lot of times fruits and vegetables powdered. We said, there's got to be a company that's doing this at the moment. And maybe there's one that's taking, these quote unquote ugly fruits and vegetables that consumers won't buy or grocers won't carry, and powdering them, because that's a great sustainability story. We can partner with them. They can provide us all of our raws. So we got on the ground. We started reaching out to try to find places that were doing this. And we found out pretty quickly that A, no one was doing it. And that B, all of these powdered fruits and vegetables were coming from China. So, North Americans, we typically understand that most ingredients that come from China are the cheapest possible ones, and a lot of times they have fillers in them. And so we thought, okay, now we need to figure out what's the most economical way to preserve the nutrients while powdering these. So we did a year and 2 month study with NRC, National Research Council, to figure out what the best option was, and they sent us a report. And then we created a process that can take these fruits and vegetables and powder them, and then those powders become raw materials in our supplements.
So I think you mentioned to me earlier, as far as you're concerned, you guys are the only company that are doing the full cycle, and are one of the few. So I'm going to take a half a step back, and I think that unfortunately, and it's the same for other things too, but sometimes when people hear the word supplement, they either roll their eyes, or there's sometimes a stigma associated because, not that it's unregulated, but there's so many of them that are not certified, right? Oh, yeah. And I think the average consumer might walk into a store and not have really a clue what they're going to get and what they can get and what's going to work and what isn't, that sort of thing. How can you get the message across to people that number one, the product itself is good for the body, but number two, it's going to pass any kind of testing and everything else. Like how can you guys stand out? I think is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I think it's all about transparency. The supplement industry really is the Wild West, especially in the US. In the US, you can basically create a powder in your bathtub, package it, and sell it because the regulations there are so nil. Whereas in Canada, you have to have an NPN number, you have to work with various different regulatory agencies. But number one for us is transparency, and then using these third-party companies that are really trusted by the consumer. So NSF, they are the biggest certifier of any products, not only supplements, but also, like if you look on your blender, it probably has an NSF certification. So they really are they're the intermediary between the consumer and the brands. So we picked the most expensive one, of course, and the best one that really brings that level of trust for the consumer.
So with your product, what is, tell me a little bit about what you're supplementing, or tell me a little bit about the product itself and how that's going to enhance, whether it's my performance or just how I feel.
Yeah, so I'll show you. This is a good time to get some of our product in here.
That's right.
So this is our flagship product, Plant Strong Protein. So, it's a plant-based protein. So, anything that a whey protein can do, a plant-based protein can do as well, without a lot of the, different issues of bloating, gas, decline recovery, because your body has to process everything. But essentially, it's great for recovery. Everyone knows that you need protein, especially athletes. So that's the number one thing. This is our number one product. We also have other products. We have multivitamin, we have a creatine, we have branched chain amino acid, a pre-workout. We have a pre-workout in pill form and powder form. We also have a magnesium product. So the line is definitely long, and we're continuing to grow the SKU range on that. But, athletes, anytime you can use anything to help you, even if it's 0.1%, they're ready to do it. And they're a great test market for the regular consumer.
So is this something that and ignoring the Bruins logo on there, if you don't mind.
Maybe Rangers next. We're working on it.
All right, cool. But now, is that something I stir up individually in a shake, or do I mix it with something else, or what's the best way to use that?
Yeah, you can mix it with water. A lot of people, you've probably seen the Instagram videos now of people adding it to smoothies or adding it into pancakes. It's really any way that you're comfortable with getting it into your system, you go ahead.
Got it. And give or take, because I'm just, I don't, I'm not a supplement user yet.
I'll send
but
you
I'll
some.
check my, that's right. I'll check my, send a pallet full, that's it. But how many would you say servings are in a container like that?
This is a 2-pound tub. It has 30 servings.
Got it. Okay.
That's a typical, like most companies have 2-pounders that last a month. We also have a 1-pound supply if you want a little less, but it's the typical. Pretty much every product you see on the shelf is 2 pounds.
And this is a once a day supplement or more than that?
You can do it once. Most people just do it once a day. Athletes would typically do it 2, sometimes even 3 times a day, depending on if they're trying to manage weight.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm trying to manage weight, but it's not working yet. Anyway, that's why I do these things on audio too, so people. No, I'm joking. Anyway, so in terms of getting the word out and having more visibility for Beyond Food. Now, first of all, time out. The name itself. Now everybody's like, wait a minute, are they Beyond Meat? Are they Beyond this? Beyond that? Were you guys first, or what happened with all that?
I mean, they would have been first, but because they've been around for I don't know how many years now. But when we trademarked and incorporated our company, no one knew really what Beyond Meat was at that point. So we were kind of at a point where we thought, you know what, this is our name. Let's just run with it. Although there is a bit of consumer confusion, but it's a different product, so it's not that big of an issue.
I mean, I suppose if they stuck some of their meatless products in a blender and powdered it up, it's almost, I don't know.
Might not taste that great.
What's that?
Might not taste that great in
Right.
that smoothie.
Plus, I think they make it in their bathtubs. Don't tell anybody. You guys don't do it in bathtubs, do you?
No,
All right.
thankfully not.
Now, how big? I mean, I'm curious to know. So, let me another quick question for I'm hopefully educating my listeners while we're going through this. But for argument's sake, you're collecting a lot of the fruits and vegetables that, as you said, are sort of unwanted by the grocery stores and so on. But it's not because they're bad or they're rotten or whatever it is. It's just simply that some of them just an apple might have a little, sort of divot in it, and they can't sell it, so it comes to you guys. But like, how much like volume of, let's say, is I don't know. I mean, are apples in a bushel, I guess, or something, or a big barrel or something? But how much does that make? Or I'm curious to know what the process is of powderizing these products.
So with our process, when you turn a product from fresh produce into powder, you're typically getting rid of 70 to 75% of its weight, which is water. And the way we do that is through a drying technique that essentially takes out the water at a low enough temperature that the product maintains its nutrient value.
Now, do you have to, again, I'm asking because I don't know, but do you have to take the skin off, or does the skin stay on?
Everything stays on except for pieces that are inedible that are cut off.
Like the stem or whatever, the seeds
Exactly.
and stuff. Got it. Yeah, that's really interesting. So are you strictly in Canada, or are you down in the States too, or what's...
We sell the products in the States, but our process is only in Canada right now, but eventually we will get down there.
So how can you grow the visibility of Beyond Food, do you think, especially down here in the States?
I think as far as the brand and market goes, it's all about distribution. It's just finding the right retailers to carry the product. But the process, it's one of those things where it's going to have, for lack of a better word, organic growth. And, people are very in tune with sustainable causes now. So we've seen that in Canada. We've had 2 very small releases on it that have both went national. And the outreach following those was so big that, our small team wasn't able to really handle everything as fast as we would have liked. So a good example is we had a little small press release, and the next day Nestle reached out to us and said, can you send us samples of your products, because we see a massive value for us to use them. So we have a meeting at their national headquarters in St. Louis this month, actually.
That's not, I mean, they're not a small company, just to let you know.
Yeah, they're massive.
I mean, this is not exactly the worst problem in the world, but can you figure out the way to boost the capacity dramatically if you need to?
That's the plan right now. That's all we're working on, is scaling up. So we need to go from Atlanta, Canada, to the biggest market in Canada, Ontario, and then work our way out west. And we have plans for that. And within the next, I guess you could say the next year, our plan is to be all across Canada and then dip into the US.
Excited?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those funny things with business that I've learned is you can get so caught up in the day-to-day, and every day there's something hanging in the balance that is, this is going to be massive when this happens. But the thing I've realized is that there's always something like that. And you have your head down and you're just grinding and grinding. And then if you have the foresight to take a step back and look at everything, that's when you see the progress you've made as a company. And I think we've only done that probably twice in the last year and a half, where you go, okay, let's take a step back and look at all the progress we've made. And that's when you go, okay, you know what, we're heading in the right direction. We're really doing things that are unique and people are excited about.
Well, TJ, that was a great point, because I that's something that I actually coach a lot of my clients with, is that whole concept of taking periodic breaks and taking that step back and just kind of looking back. It's funny. It happened to me actually about maybe several months ago. We have a home up in the Catskills, and I was sitting out on the deck, and I was just thinking about, part of it was such a relaxing environment, and I wasn't relaxed at all. All I was thinking about was all the 42 million things I had to do. because I'm involved with this podcast. I wrote a book. I'm trying to, grow my coaching efforts into the different players associations, that sort of thing. But on top of that, working towards just getting athletes a lot of great advice. There's so many different things I was thinking about. And I was like, oh, I can't even relax, right? And then, I stopped and I said, you know what? But wait a second. In the last 6 months, I've written this book, and released it. I've started this podcast. I've got all these, the great website. I did all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I guess I have done a lot. But sometimes you're right. When you're in the middle of it all, it's like you're in a fast moving car and you don't have time to look at the scenery too much. So that was a great point. So how are you thinking about, or let me take a step back. Do you want to, this sounds crazy, but grow the business, or you want to make sure you first sort of are ready for that growth before you grow it?
Yeah, I think a big thing that we've done is really brought in members that our executive team needed. So the way I look at it is, okay, I have a skill set, Darren has a skill set, our other team members have a certain skill set. We need to bring people in that fill a void. And we've really done that over the last several months. So we finally found a perfect COO. We hired a CFO. We've expanded our operations team. And it's really about walking before you run. But if you want to run, you need to have all the available pieces. And those are the key people that we've brought in. And it's partnering with companies that are already doing it. So that's something we're expanding into now, is because you can only do so much on your own. You want to find people that can help you grow and scale.
So with that said, let me, what I want to do is just jump into sort of coach mode for a second, just give you a couple of ideas that might be able to help you and the company. Yeah. I'm a big user of LinkedIn, not because I, always feel compelled to be on social media and that sort of thing. But to me, the platform is basically free advertising. It's basically a way that if you want to grow your company or increase sales or anything, there's so many great ways to do it on the platform. But one of the things that I like to do, and what I'd suggest for you to do is, one thing that you can start doing, TJ, is putting, for example, some posts, writing some posts on the on your page that might be, for example, something like 5 great ways to incorporate a supplement into your diet that will allow for A, B, C, D, and E or something. And then at the bottom you say, would love to tell you more about Beyond Food. Reach out and connect with me anytime. But what you do is you maybe once a week or every, twice a week, however often you want to do it, add content that educates people like me that have no clue about a lot of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then what you do is you also join groups on LinkedIn that you can start sharing it with. So in other words, there may be a group, like, I'm making this up, but the Financial Executives of Canada or something. Well, you may think, well, I don't really necessarily care about the Financial Executives of Canada, except that there's 400,000 members. So if I share this story in there, then you're off and running. There's also NHL alumni groups. There's a variety of different groups, Dartmouth alumni groups, et cetera, that you should absolutely join just because of the eyeballs that you'll get on each of these posts. And then what you'll find is that if you put an article in there or a post that said, we're excited about the fact that we're not only NSF certified, but we're the true only full cycle supplement firm out there that really also incorporates, just vegan products. And then you sort of say, would love to share this information with anybody in your network that you think would be interested in hearing about this. It sort of grows exponentially. And again, it's you're not paying for this, and you're getting exposure to potentially hundreds of thousands of people, whether it's you want to do it just in Canada or down here in the States or however. But I mean, that's something I'm more than happy to walk you through at any point, TJ. But yeah, because it's incredible. It's incredible how that particular tool is really not used by too many people. You rarely see it. I mean, you may see something that's more self-serving, like, it'll be like somebody saying, hey, come see my speech at wherever it is, or here's something I did at wherever, but it's all me. But here, if you do it where it's all about your reader and you're saying, listen, if you want to feel better every morning, or if you want to feel like you're got revitalized, or you've got energy and that sort of thing during the day, even if it's at work sitting behind a desk, if you just incorporate one scoop of Beyond Food or one scoop of a vegan supplement, you're going to find, your energy up, your demeanor going, you're smiling more, that sort of thing. I mean, to me, I'd be reading it going like, well, I'm in, count me in. How do I find out more? Or where do I find this? That sort of thing.
Yeah, it's funny how important LinkedIn is. I remember when we started this, a friend of mine was like, "Are you on LinkedIn?" And I'm like, I always got emails from LinkedIn, and I thought, what is this stupid thing? But I got on there. It took, I know the number of connections you wanted to get to was 500, and I thought, how am I going to know 500 people on here? But you realize that anyone who isn't a hockey player is on LinkedIn, and even some hockey players now.
Well, there's plenty of hockey players on, and I think that they're all starting to realize, and all athletes are starting to realize the value of growing a network of even non-fans. I mean, you're going to have your share, I'm sure you do, TJ, of people said, "Oh, I saw you play, blah, 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 would love to connect with you." But you're going to find other people are going to say, "Hey, I'm really interested in hearing more about Beyond Food," or "I'm interested in, do you have any room for further investment," or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of this platform. I think that to take I'll just tell you a quick little story of how a lot of this came about from my perspective in working with athletes. It's solely because of LinkedIn, where about 4 years or so ago, I was doing my sort of working with executives, that sort of thing, and out of the blue, I joined a group on LinkedIn called Hockey Players Doing Business, something like that. And Kevin Dahl, does that ring a bell? He played with the Flames ages ago, but he's got a company called Victory and a company called Next Goal. And he'd probably be really interested. I can introduce you guys. I think you'd want to know him.
Cool.
But he reached out to me and said, "Mark, I've got these websites and I'd love to get your content on there. Are you okay with that?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course." And so I started writing some content here and there for what they were doing, which was helping athletes transition. But they had a website where athletes could go into and find jobs. It was more of a job search kind of a site, not really what I do, which is really teaching them how to find a job and what they should do next. But that's why he wanted my content. Anyway, next thing you know, he was recommending a former player to me, saying, "Look, I think he needs your help." I spoke to that player who said, "Why should I be on LinkedIn? I'm just some dumb hockey jock." That was his words. Now, he was certainly not dumb at all. And, he had graduated with a 4-year degree, all this kind of thing. He'd played for 13 years. He was a captain of one of the teams, and he'd been out several years. And he had already done some day trading and so, understood the markets. So within 5 weeks of him sort of being kind of not happy with the situation and being at home and so on, kind of just grinding it out. And then 5 weeks later, he had accepted a job with a financial services firm on the trading desk. And he was completely blown away. And I said, that he said, "Mark, you really need to work with athletes. We really need your help." When most athletes retire, most of them have no idea what they're going to do next. And most of them struggle with their transition. So he said, "That's what you should focus on." That's what prompted me to write the book. Then the book led to the podcast, and then, which led to doing the Tuck thing, which you must have heard a little bit of, and that's what led us to connect. So it's interesting how a lot of these things all happen because of, one connection or one conversation, right? But in this case here, a lot of this is really grown from being on this platform. So anyway, we'll talk offline about how to really take that, your profile and really give it a performance boost.
I like it.
With some
performance enhancing supplements.
That's right. Not steroids, damn it. Watch it. All right. But now, what's the best way for people, TJ, to reach out to you directly or to find out more about Beyond Food?
LinkedIn.
What?
No, just LinkedIn's one. Our website has an email on there. We see every email that comes in there. I see on my desk too. So we also have another website, tdfsports.com, which is our products like this. that's a good resource to see the actual products that are in market. But yeah, I'm easy to get a hold of.
And but the website itself is
beyondfood.net or tdfsports.com, and we are in the process, spoiler alert, of joining them into one.
TDF Food Beyond. No, anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but
No, don't spoil it. Now, I think you mentioned earlier, I'm lying, that you would personally autograph every Flames container that you sold. Is that true?
I think we'd sell less if I did that. We'll work a deal with someone on the team to get them to do it. But yeah, the Flames one looks great. You can find it at any GNC in that region. So the NHL restricts you to selling team branded product within that region. Obviously, like an Edmonton store wouldn't carry the Flames product.
Probably not anyway.
I bet you there's a few Flames fans there that would buy it, so that's why we have different teams.
I see. Well, you got to get Theo to sign a bunch of those. He'll do that.
I bet you he would. Yeah, he was my favorite player growing up.
And I think you know this, maybe you don't, but he was my very first podcast guest. He was guest number 1.
That's awesome.
He and an absolutely great guy. Anyway, that's cool to know. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time today, TJ. I am always excited to hear athletes that played professionally and then really focused on making a successful transition. And you're certainly there, TJ. Even though you abandoned Dartmouth, as an 18, 19-year-old, I don't blame you. It's too damn cold up there and too many smart people up there. It's a good idea to leave. But congrats on all your success so far. I'm going to wrap things up with a little segment I call Hit Your Mark. And it's just I'm just going to ask you a few quick questions and we'll go from there. Ready? Awesome. A nice, easy one first. Let's see if you can remember who hit you the hardest on the rink.
I would say Big Z is Zdeno Chara, and it was actually me hitting him. I took a huge run at him, and I think I bruised my ribs. I wasn't the same for 2 weeks, and I remember saying, I'll never try to hit that guy again.
Like running into a mountain.
Yeah.
And, it's incredible that he's still out there too, isn't it?
Now,
I know that you've been, as you said, you sort of hung up the skates now and so for a while, but do you play are you active in any other type of sports or not really, or what's?
I love tennis. I play tennis when weather permits. It's pretty rainy out here now in Halifax, but I love tennis. Love just doing something every day. I'm always active and go for hikes. It's beautiful country out here to go hiking. And 2 little dogs and a daughter now, a young daughter and my wife. So it's we got a good crew.
That's great. Now, do you own a boat?
No. That's not a good investment from everything I've read. Happiest day is when you buy it and when you sell it.
That's right. Well, that's what they always say is find a friend with a boat. That's the key thing. If you did have one though, what do you think you'd call it?
I would call it Bad Investment.
You know what? That would be at first too. That's actually a great name. Good for you. Last question is, if you had the opportunity to hang out with 3 people, alive or dead, for a drink or a vegan meal, etc., who would they be?
Wow. Say Jesus would be one. I'm sure you could learn a lot from him. Number 2 would be, oh man, that's a tough one. I'm probably thinking of people that I could learn from. So maybe Bill Gates would be pretty cool. And then the 3rd, let's say, oh man, you stumped me here.
Well, that's all right. I'll put you on the spot, didn't I? Well, what's interesting is that, a lot of people, actually Bill Gates has gotten a fair amount of votes and that sort of thing over the episodes. And Jesus.
Has anyone said Jesus yet?
What's that?
Anyone said Jesus yet?
I think one other person may have. Yeah, that's it.
You're going to learn more from him than anyone.
Well, no kidding. And you know, this is going to sound, and you know, I was raised Catholic, so I got to be careful what I say. My mom will spin in her grave, but I'd want to talk to him about like other stuff, like, you know, hey, what do you do for fun? Like, what do you know, do you kick a soccer ball around or whatever the hell it is, you know, whatever they
awesome.
had, you know, just like get to know the guy. I mean, I can't imagine you spend his whole day, you know,
no,
being Jesus. You know? But that's pretty interesting. All right, I'm gonna I don't want to let you off the hook. No, all right, come on, give me somebody else, like I don't know, an athlete, anybody.
I think I actually would like to sit with a guy like Joe Rogan. It's kind of funny. Like, I bet you a lot of people would say that now, but you know, he meets with so many people that I listen to. I don't listen to all of his podcasts, but the people that he has on, that, you know, scientists, and, you know, I'm very interested in health and nutrition, of course, with what I do, but there's a lot of people on there that he has that have a tremendous knowledge in anti-aging and different fields like that. So I'd like to pick his brain on his favorite guests.
All right. I had given you the opportunity to say, well, Mark, you'd be the third, but I'll let it go this time. You're like, well, Mark, I can have you anytime. Anyway. Exactly. All right. Good. Yeah, we'll see about that. All right. Anyway. Well, listen, thanks again for being on, TJ. You've been an awesome guest, and I always like to really, again, showcase people that have, less the name, made their mark, and you certainly have, but you're continuing to do so, and I'm excited to see, you know, how really Beyond Food grows, not just in Canada, but gets a sort of a foothold much bigger down here in the States. And I think it's exciting to see somebody like you really run with that, and you know, making that impact. So I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it too, and looking forward to a vegan dinner in New York one of these days.
There you go. I'll loosen my, you'll have to teach me how to do that. You'll you know, you can coerce me over, wait a minute, beer's vegan, right?
Oh yeah, there's vegan beer.
Good. All right. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.